Birgit, happy Friday. Give me 2 highlights of your week.
Happy Friday, Maja. Good to see you. What's the highlight of my week? First of all, I got an email from a friend of mine from Zimbabwe I met over 20 years ago, and we both lost contact. And this was really, really cool to get in touch again. And second, spring has started. That made my week.
Yeah. That's for sure. Is that friend of yours from school you told me while you were at school? You did an internship in Zimbabwe, wasn't that after you stopped studying to finish up your thesis? Was that friend?
Yeah, exactly. It was when I was in Zimbabwe. You know, I studied social work and did my undergraduate thesis in Zimbabwe, working for a local NGO there in the HIV/AIDS prevention work. And I met him there, but it was not so easy at the time to keep the contact, and now we are in touch again.
Okay.
Really
That's cool. So please tell me, what does a woman from Schwäbisch Hall do in Zimbabwe? How did you decide to go in Zimbabwe from all places?
To be precise, Schwäbisch Hall is close, but I'm even a bit more from the rural areas. It's in a nice city called Ellwangen. And what did I do in Zimbabwe? I mean, Africa always fascinated me. I'm also, I have to say, very fascinated with Nelson Mandela, and for me it was a big chance for completing my social work studies too.
Cool. All right, so what did you do in Zimbabwe? What was the grant for exactly?
I did a research on a peer education program in Zimbabwe, and this is basically we run training sessions to make people aware of HIV/AIDS, how to stop spreading it, how to prevent it, how to protect your families. And I mean, we were running the program in companies across the country, and I mean, it was absolutely great.
Okay, so social work was the undergraduate, the thesis from Schwäbisch Hall, Ellwangen, to Zimbabwe. Let's be precise, I agree, to Zimbabwe, 6 months there, and then you came back. And then how did you end up in Hamburg?
Yeah, I returned after 5 months, finished my thesis, and it was an interesting time. The work was cool, but what I also realized in Zimbabwe is social work is very much focused on the individual cases, and actually I'm more into I want to change things structurally. That's one thing, and that's what you cannot do as a social worker. And the other thing, of course, is that social work in Germany, then you are stuck as a social work. Different or unlike the US, you cannot do a master in a different field. And so I decided then to do law and to study in Hamburg in a private university called Bucerius Law School. And after that, I mean, I am in love with that subject today, and studied law then from scratch to the very end.
So you basically have 2 advanced degrees, completely different. Okay, but
it's not so different.
Okay, tell me, how not?
No, I think I mean, many people ask it, but I think the real thing in common is that in both fields you structure society. And for me there is a lot in common. So
I know your mom and dad were doctors, both of them, in Ellwangen. They had their practice, right? Why did you, so you studied social work as an undergraduate, but then wouldn't it be more natural to simply go and apply for medical school and then study medicine? Why law? Social work and law? A daughter of two doctors? Why?
I think a doctor is a very cool profession, but it has not been the right choice for me. And I realized during my social work studies that I really rather want to change the society, structural issues. And that's also in certain limitations in social work.
You could never achieve this as a social worker?
No, because in Germany you are not given the position, and I mean not only in the sense of career, but also in the terms of responsibility. And that's why I went back to law school to get basically the position then to really change things in a position where I have the responsibility. And become a doctor was simply not my choice, because then I would be back again working on the individual cases.
And once you were done with law studies, then I remember you told me you moved to Wiesbaden. You got a job at Linklaters?
I first had to do my traineeship, and yeah, after being in the north for 6 years, I wanted to go a bit more south. My sister lived there as well, and did a traineeship in Wiesbaden before I then started working in Frankfurt, as you can see, where I'm still today, and worked in a law firm called Linklaters in insolvency law, banking and international transactions. So actually I moved quite away from this public law area to the private sector, which in terms of law and transactions is much more interesting to me. So
2 years at the company, and then the move to ECB. How did that happen? Why did that happen? Why are you not now on a partner track somewhere chasing big money? You went to ECB. Why?
This would be too easy. Come on, Maja. I think you know
there's one in the middle.
Yeah,
you're right. Good point. Yeah.
No, I worked at Linklaters 4 years, and it was really, I mean, very fascinating, because we had international transactions. We traveled a lot. We had cool events across the globe. I mean, we have offices in New York, London, and it was a cool time. But there, my, let's say, rather public connection kicks in. Again, I knew I don't want to become a partner there. Maybe the way to become it would be interesting, but it's not my my goal to become a partner there. And I searched then for an interesting job, which I finally found at the Deutsche Bundesbank, where I stayed for 2 years before. Of course, I was missing a bit the international context, and had then the chance to move to ECB.
Position at the Bundesbank, you abandoned for the ECB. So the ECB must be quite interesting career then.
Yeah, the ECB gained at the time, you know, we had this financial crisis, and then we built up Europe a lot at the political level by creating the, I mean, banking, the European banking supervision, and the ECB is basically the institution in charge for that. And of course, then at some point I said the Bundesbank is very interesting, but maybe it's even more interesting to actually be involved in the center, which is now the ECB as the responsible institution for supervising the significant institutions directly, but also the less significant institutions indirectly. And of course in Frankfurt it's a good choice.
Yeah, you have the wealth of possibility. All right, but I still don't get it. So ECB,
don't get it.
Then politics, why? Why did CDU? Why did you choose to do that?
Good question. When did I actually exit the party? It was exactly on my move from the Bundesbank to the ECB. I applied there in August. In November I acceded the CDU, and in January I started with the ECB. And I mean, I've always been interested in politics. I read 1-2 newspapers a day, and at some point I simply realized in Germany, you know, there was this financial European crisis, the Euro crisis, in particular the Alternative für Deutschland.
That's for sure a crisis.
Yes, they grew a lot, where I at some point said, well, I really need to take a stance, which is not sufficient to read the newspapers here, but simply take a more active role. And given that I share 85–90% with the CDU, which is already a lot, I then decided to take a more active role there.
Okay, but so within the CDU, you decide to run the international working group. Why the international working group? Why the interest for it? Why do you think Frankfurt needs it?
I mean, first of all, as you know, Maja, right? You are international.
I am a serial migrant.
Yeah, exactly. And with you, there are 30% of the population, or maybe more, having that background. Second, we have 15% of the population being EU citizens, and all of them coming here. And don't tell me you learned German from day one. And I think it's very important, if we want to run local politics, that we offer a forum in English. Despite Brexit, I think it should be in English, that everybody can get engaged. You know, we are now having municipality elections in 10 days on the 14th of March. How should people get informed about local politics? And that's why actually the CDU decided to set this up. And I was, lucky me, I was then basically chosen as the person to run it.
So social work, law, then you go to corporate law basically, then you go to the Bundesbank, then the ECB. Why not the Liberal Party? What about CDU attracts you?
I mean, I grew up in the South in a Roman Catholic family, and I mean, those are the values I have grown up with. And the CDU is for me the party which represents not only these values, but also fully accepts Germany being part of the EU, which is very important for me, and offers, I mean, it's for me the only program that offers the right combination of strong economy combined with social welfare based on a Christian values, which I share. And that's why I went to the CDU, and the Liberals would not be an option for me. Also the Green would not be an option for me. I respect the environmental concerns they have, but I mean, the CDU is then the party which puts it into practical policy, which actually works for all these people outside and makes the country work, and being funded as well.
I find it very interesting that the CDU of all parties, which I consider a very traditional German political party, decided to form an international working group. Why did you think that was important? I mean, we all know that there are a lot of foreign people in Frankfurt, but so what? Why do you think they should be represented?
I mean, you mentioned it, right? I think 15% of the population are EU citizens. More than 30% have a migration background. I think at the moment, I am the one and only working group of any political party, I think, in the country, as far as I'm aware, offering a forum in English. And I think it's absolutely crucial. There's a big portion of this society here which otherwise has no means to get involved in local politics or anything else. And that's also what the CDU, or what has been discussed there. We should offer basically the entry card into the local affairs in this country, and I'm very happy to run that group. And it's great. We have more than 300 people. I think it's the biggest working group in the city for sure, and it just reflects the demand for such a group.
And what do you say to the critics? You keep pushing Europe, you keep saying that English should be a language that should be used around Frankfurt. There are plenty of people who don't agree with you there. How do you justify this?
I think it's not natural for every German that there is all of a sudden an English forum. But I have to say, yes, I get the questions, why do you do certain things in English? But if you explain it, most people see, oh well, in Frankfurt it might fit. And I think actually I also do not care, because for me it's important that integration is a two-way street. And I think it's actually the first time that we offer something where we go a step towards the international community. And of course that some Germans may have some questions. I think it's a valid point. That's not a problem. And I think by having that discussion, we are all moving to something new. And that's also how I see Frankfurt. There's no other more international city in Germany. And I think it should be us moving or being a leading example also for other European cities. And that's actually where I also Frankfurt see in the next 30 years. It should not also only be here. I would hope to have at some point international working group in Paris, in Zagreb, in Athens, wherever. I'm not saying this fits for all towns with little number of foreigners, but in the bigger cities I think we should have it. Otherwise Europe might have difficulties in working.
Well, most certainly having a bit of English in Germany will not make Germany less German, that exactly. I am sure of.
Exactly.
I don't think anybody is really advocating for not speaking German in Germany, for sure. But it does help to people who do not speak German to be able to interact. And you're right, integration is a two-way street, and sometimes you have to give a hand for somebody to take it.
Yeah, and you know, it's not only about, I mean, it's also about the economy. We want to have more startups. We want to have great ideas, new sectors in the city. For me, it's absolutely crucial that also we offer, also in the city administration, we offer English services in the Chamber for Industry and Commerce. We need to have that. We have an international city. And that's what we should aim for. And the international working group is, for me, the means to trigger it. And the good news is this group is so active that everybody, or many people in the international world, in Frankfurt and also in the German world, they know it because it's a new tool which I think we just bring it now to the next level, and given the big support, I think the way to continue that is really, really clear.
What from the ECB experiences did you bring into the international working group? What have you noticed talking to your colleagues from Portugal, from Spain, from Paris, who come to Germany? What have you learned from them that you hope to change?
I mean, many of the colleagues, if they arrive, they bring their families, maybe children, they need to settle, they go to I mean, what I learned, it's quite difficult to get along in the public authorities without speaking German. It's not so easy to settle down, to go to the registration office, and that's also colleagues who say, well, we might consider sending our kids to German schools, but the problem is they do not receive the service and the consultation services to get the information what their choices are. And I think that's something for sure we should change.
Mm. That I know out of personal experience that most European nationals do not know that they are eligible to vote at the municipality elections.
Exactly, and that's a pity, and I think that's where we should make a difference, because every EU citizen who lives in this city, I mean, that's the personal environment. They should have exactly the same say, and that's where I have to say I'm really proud of. I think we as an international working group, we reach out to so many people, be it on Facebook, be it on Instagram, and I think it's really, really important. 15% of the population, that's a big part of the population. And for instance, what we could, English science, English services, or even more important, you just referred to the elections. Yeah, but for some of the colleagues, they just tell me, well, I get such a paper in German, but unfortunately I don't understand it. I have no explanation in English. And of course then the German way of looking at things often is, well, the official language is German. Of course this is correct, but I don't think it stops us from having an unofficial translation to give people a true choice to participate or not.
No. What are the goals of the international working group in the next, let's say, 5 years?
The goal is to reach out to the international community as much as we can, basically to be a forum for discussions, exchange of ideas on topics which are important for the international community, and more concretely it is really to improve English services offered in authorities but also in schools to reach out to the international community. And don't think that that's only a social project. No, I think it's in our deep own interest to make people, I mean, there are kids, there are families, they want to stay, so it's in our interest to enable everybody to live a comfortable life here, and part of it is basically to make the integration a bit smoother. And it's also about economy and business. If you want to do a startup, where do you get the information for the insurance, for the license? You need to get it in a language you do understand, and I don't think that German is what most internationals understand from day one.
Past career experiences. What's the plan for the future? The ECB, full-time politics? How do you plan on juggling both?
I mean, the direct plan is, with all of you support, hopefully to become a member of the city parliament, and that's well possible to combine that with my job at the ECB. I mean, it's an honorary office, and that's what I would find perfect, to continue my career at the ECB in combination with a position in the city parliament, where I could then finally shape society, work on structural issues, offer services, which actually would be for me a really cool combination of combining social work, law, and other international interests I have in my two positions at the ECB and the city parliament.
Okay, so I won't ask you about your 5-year plan then. I will ask you, what are your plans for the weekend?
Yeah, the plan for tomorrow is, I mean, you know, one more week to go for the municipality election. So tomorrow morning, of course, we'll start with some campaigning in front of Rewe, Bockenheimer Landstraße. And then finally the weekend will start with a bike tour with friends along the Main to Mainz, and of course complying with the corona restrictions. How about yours?
I'll have a glass of wine with a couple of friends, as I normally do.